So group one will be focusing on the economic impact of a disaster and how long it takes for the community to recover and restore. Remember, every person's opinion counts. You know, if you need outside assistance, if we need training, we have the representative from the Embassy of Japan. So she's here, she's waving her hands on across. I would grab her so she's on your speed dial. One of the things you want to think about from an economic development perspective is how fast you get those business doors open. How fast we get the schools reopened. How fast do we get people back up and running so that the government is collecting revenue to deliver the services for which we pay our taxes. One of the things you want to think about, Group 2 is going to be thinking about is a long-term strategy. Where are the gaps and what should we be doing for the private sector in terms of long-term strategy? So the group that has Nivea, grab her, put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Group 2 is going to be thinking and Group 2 has Dr. Price. And what should we be doing for the private sector in terms of long-term strategy? So the group that has Nivea, grab her, the services for which we pay our taxes. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability analysis chart. Somebody wants to one up here. I'll bring another one down. But it's in this little short sheet. So the group that has Nivea, grab her, the services for which we pay our taxes. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability and analysis chart. Group 2 has Dr. Price. One up here. I'll bring another one down. But it's in this little short sheet. So the group that has Nivea, grab her, the services for which we pay our taxes. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability and analysis chart. Group 2 has Dr. Price. I'll bring another one down. But it's in this little short sheet. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability and analysis chart. Group 2 has Dr. Price. I'll bring another one down. But it's in this little short sheet. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability and analysis chart. Group 2 has Dr. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability and analysis chart. Group 2 has Dr. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability and analysis chart. Group 2 has Dr. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability and analysis chart. Group 2 has Dr. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability and analysis chart. Group 2 has Dr. Put her close in the middle. You have Mark Lopez, who's been through this in every country. Use your vulnerability and analysis chart. Group 2 has Dr. This is an opportunity for us to share our thoughts and our ideas, and you'll see some common things. The microphone is on. So, would you introduce yourself and your organization and your group? This is what you talked about, please.
And good evening all. I am Charles Lazary. I'm the Deputy Pilot Master of Trinidad. Just a little message from Evelyn. She said that after this whole thing is finished, free drinks on tropical shipping in the bar downstairs. That's for making me presenter. Just say tropical shipping and it's all paid for. Our discussion came down to 4 items, really. Out of a score of 25, the highest one was a hurricane for us, tropical storm. Probability of occurrence for that, we gave it a 3. Potential human impact 4. Property impact 5. Business impact 5. Resource availability 5. That gave us a score of 22 out of 25. The next highest one was an earthquake for us. Probability of occurrence in a major earthquake was a 2. Potential human impact would be 4. Property impact 4. Business impact 4. Resource availability 4. With a total of 18 out of 25. Security was the next one for us. Probability of occurrence, 0.5, but 4. Crime, just crime generally. You can't get to work. Businesses not being attractive to invite business into the country. With a total of 18 out of 25. Potential impact 4. Property impact 3. Business impact 4, availability of resources 2, and a score of 17. Severe weather was the last one in ranking. Severe weather, heavy rain, flooding, power lines down, that sort of stuff. Business impact 4. Probability of occurrence 4. Potential human impact 3. Property impact 3. Business impact 3. Resource availability 3. So that was the least of the problems, the incidents that we thought of. So 4 really we are looking at, and that's what we had to do in the time that we had. Thank you very much.
Anyone else in the group want to comment on what he said, or he's representing all that you concern yourself with? All right, thank you. Group 2, please. Anyone else in the group want to comment on what he said, or is he representing all that you concern yourself with?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Right, so my group, I was appointed, my colleagues and I were appointed by our group to make the presentation. We only got as far as flooding and earthquake, but I'll tell you what, the experience in even completing these two illustrated was a good demonstration of some of the dynamics that occur when you're doing business continuity. Even early when we saw the presentation, the one part of the preparation of the risk assessment was assumption. So we had to make some assumptions in coming up with identifying flooding as one of the more significant ones.
Right, so we defined assumptions by saying that risk was equal to loss times severity divided by the number of cases. That is what we looked at in making our assumptions.
Right? So when we looked at flooding, free drinks according to my colleague. When we looked at flooding, the probability of occurrence, and we having to determine one of the assumptions we made is the location of the flooding, and we isolated it to Port of Spain because that was a situation that most of us could have identified with. So the probability of occurrence was a 5, because we know if rainfall for 25 solid minutes in Port of Spain is short of flood. Potential human impact 4.5. Potential property impact, we gave it a 4.5. Potential business impact 3. The resource availability in that context for the internal resources based on our vulnerabilities and exposures, we set a 3. as an average based on our individual experiences. And the external resources is also relatively weak. To deal with it, we gave it a 2 with a total score of 22.5.
22.5, yeah.
You want to go with earthquake? Okay, as far as the earthquake was the other one that we saw, because we've been having quite a lot of tremors recently. So the probability using a scientific and experiential and presentation, some of the information presented from the presentation, there was a lot of debate with that one. We came up with a 3.5 for probability of occurrence. Potential human impact, 5. Potential property impact, 5. Potential business impact, 5, because they're all interrelated. Resource availability, we're very weak based on the discussion again that went kind of away from this. And external resources, because of the absence of communication, knowledge, blah, 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 2.5 with a total score of 23. My colleague will now walk us through some of the gaps that we identified, why we have such significant exposures as far as disaster is concerned.
So we looked at, doing the matrix, the analysis was key in determining what the gaps are so that we can focus, in terms of recovery. And the first thing that the group came up with, of course, was the issue of communication, both internal and external, starting from the state agencies all the way to the internal system for emergency response, disaster preparedness, or crisis management. And that was one of the gaps that the group saw. The other element or the gap that we identified was a lack of what we will call business continuity planning or even crisis management. Most organizations, when we look at it, simple plans, even a 1 page in terms of the actions to be taken in the event of an earthquake, in the event of a fire, is sometimes not clearly, detailed and of course communicated to people. So that was another gap that we saw. Another gap clearly coming forward was leadership. Leadership within the organization, leadership from state entities to say to us that, listen, we have an impending severe weather system and the potential consequences is going to be 1, 2, 3. And these are some of the actions that should be taken by businesses, 1, 2, or by state entities. All right. Another area, another gap that we saw was that there was a lack of training within the, for internal, which would be for your employees, and of course external for members of the public, knowing what actions to take. If we say evacuate Port of Spain, everybody leaves at the same time. There is clearly, no defined route of leaving Port of Spain, where, so training was an issue that we saw. Another gap that came up, I know a lot of gaps from just 2, I know you guys did 4, right? Was of course simulations and drills. The only organizations that really do simulation and drills is the airport and of course the Port Authority, that we would do that. But is members or are members of the public really aware of the actions to take or actions to be taken in the event of an evacuation, in the event of a disaster? So this was another gap that we saw. And the last but not least was limited resources. Resources in terms of financial, resources in terms of coming from our regional level, at the corporations, etc. And of course, resources internal. Most companies in Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of disaster recovery or even mitigation, rely on an insurance. That's what we do in reality. So that was, some of the gaps that the group identified, and of course, coming out of the 2 basic analysis of flooding and earthquakes. Thank you guys.
One gap that my very good colleague forgot, which was a very, very interesting one and revealing one, in which this entire workshop was anchored in, is the absence of coordination among private sector and public sector agencies. Because you could have the best plan individually, and that when that discussion came up about everybody leaving at the same time, that tells it all. Because clearly, if everybody leaves at the same time, it will be gridlock and we would be no better off. So that coordination, the whole purpose of this workshop to me was brought home when the discussion evolved around that. So absence of a coordinated response. It was only now, as a matter of fact, and let me just give a very quick story. I lived through Hurricane Ivan in Grenada. That was in my other life in the financial services sector. I was in charge of the operations in RBC Grenada, and I was there for Hurricane Ivan. I spent 24 hours in my covered carport in my car, right? So I know firsthand what that is like. And by the way, I was in charge of business continuity as operations, as senior operations manager. That was my thing. So I mean, I'm just saying, even that experience, it brought home at some level the importance of coordinated operating and coordination and collaboration and cooperation. But I think this little discussion around earthquake and flooding brought that home even more. So thank you very much.
Wow. Oh my. Well, that was so. See, I know Joanne, you know. Excellent. I want to thank you. Your work has just begun. I really want to say that once you start to talk about the truth, you know, and in this instance, very consequential truths, we have issues amongst our islands in terms of varied responses for disasters. And it's a matter of trust. The public sector, the private sector, trusting the public sector, and bringing this collaboration and cooperation and partnership and coordination together. I want to thank you, but I want to charge you with this responsibility that don't let what this is, this exercise that you went through, because this is truly how you do business continuity conversation. This is how you determine your island's vulnerability or your personal vulnerability. And if my boss was here, our CEO, he would tell you that one of the things first and primary is always your family first. And how you define and extend your family in terms of your own personal preparation is subject to your definition. For me, it began with a terrible experience of learning about Hurricane Hugo and the lack of preparation for a community. I left the St. Croix picture up because I will tell you it looks and could look like Trinidad. Lots of oil tanks. This was a refinery at the bottom. And when Professor Watlington described how it was crushed, it didn't just impact the refinery, it affected the entire island of St. Croix and thus the entire economy of the U.S. Virgin Islands, thus the entire population, because if a disaster occurs and it is so impactful, we can't work, and our inability to work means our children can't go to school, we're all sitting crippled, and the economy becomes stagnant. There is no way any community can survive amongst itself without a coordinated, cooperative response. And so let's agree from here to take this. And the plan that was described by Kelly earlier today that talks about the 5 vision, I think that is a start. And my encouragement would be to communicate amongst ourselves, or even to create some public service ads or community announcement, and then encourage the recognized organization to come together. Hotel and Tourism Association. I met, where's my friend from the small hotel? She's, you know, there are groups that want to work, and the possibility for support is out there. Professional organization, hotel association, chambers of commerce, the Manufacturers Association, all have these things. So I want to thank you for your time, and I want to encourage you as you identify the gaps, as you truthfully take a look at your own preparation. Start first at home, prepare yourself, and then the rest goes out. I want to turn this back over to Evelyn, and I sure hope that this part of the discussion today lend itself for you to think through some areas that you should be thinking about. Thank you very, very much for your participation. Evelyn.
Now, contrary to what Charles says, the drinks aren't on me afterwards because I have prior commitments. So, ladies and gentlemen and distinguished speakers today, I have been given the benefit, and it's my pleasure to make a few closing remarks and express my gratitude to all of those that have truly made this event a reality. The planning of the 2016 Tropical Shipping Disaster Management was initiated a few months ago with Jennifer and the team, and with the assistance of our collaborating partners and our sponsors, the Hilton Hotel, Flibdeco, Femco Limited, Blue Waters, 3J Contingency, Distributed Systems Limited, and Agostini's. This workshop truly became a reality. I wish to express our gratitude to the Senator, the Honourable Minister Franklin Cahn, the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, the ODPM, and by extension the Ministry of National Security and their staff for their enthusiastic participation. A conference truly becomes a success only if its expert presenters and participants embrace the purpose. I think the last 20-30 minutes just proved that in itself by the lively conversations on this side of the room. I won't say they were as detailed as the lively conversations on this side of the room, but I couldn't listen to both. Thus, we do express our sincere thanks to all of you who've come from overseas and all over Trinidad and Tobago. Again, I would like to thank all our expert presenters. I would like to thank my team for assisting in this. I would like to thank Michelle Bradshaw for their utmost help, and Mr. Al Berman, the team, Professor Roy Watlington, Mr. James Price, and Ms. Jennifer Nugent-Hill. Again, on behalf of Tropical Shipping, I would like to thank all of you and wish you a safe trip home to those that are departing today. And those that aren't, we will give them a roti tonight. And I will challenge you all, and I do look forward to our next meeting in Trinidad because I have all your emails. So I will be reaching out because I do think it does not need to stop here, and we can move it forward. Thank you again. Especially you.